Hello, my name is Sarah. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about some 2024 releases that I'm really excited to get to and read. I'm not someone who really looks too far ahead at which books will be released. Occasionally I'll see like an author I really like post something about a new book that's coming out and then I'm like, oh my god, why are you telling me this now when this book is not coming out for like another 9 months or longer? But other than that, I just don't really focus on new releases too much until I hear people talking about them. I always feel like I have such like a backlog of books to get through from like the previous year alone, not to mention from years past or books that I want to reread. So yeah, I'm never really looking forward like in terms of like what's coming out soon. I follow a lot of book prizes, so I get a lot of recommendations from that as well. And a lot of those are newer releases, either being released in the year that the prize is like coming out, I guess, or like being awarded, or just like recently in the past year, but the last few months of it. And the prize that I follow the most, which I will be talking a lot more about soon, is the Women's Prize for Fiction. I'm very excited. The long list is coming out March 7th for 2024, and I'm so excited about that. And every year before that gets announced, I watch people's prediction videos, and I'm always amazed by like how people can make these predictions, and they bring up all these books, some authors or books that I've heard of, many that I have not, and I'm just like, how can you even begin to guess? And some people, even more so crazy, is that they are like correct with a lot of their predictions. Eric Anderson, who is a YouTuber that I follow, especially around the time of the Women's Prize for Fiction, he is so accurate. He and his friend Anna always do these prediction videos, and they'll both bring some books and kind of talk about, they usually have similar predictions. And yeah, they always get at least a few of the books, if not at least like half. And I'm just like, how can you like, I don't know, I'm not in that literary world enough because I don't pay attention to new releases, I think, or like what has come out or will be coming out. So the last few years that I've been really following this prize, I've always felt a little like behind in that. And maybe, I know I'm not gonna be predicting anything this year, but maybe next year I will come up with some predictions. I'm trying to look a little more forward into what's coming out, trying to keep up with some of these releases because I'm curious, and it's really fun to be able to predict things. But at this point I would be so incorrect or not even have anything to really go off of that I'm not in that place to be making these predictions. Anyway, this year I started looking at some lists and I was curious, what is coming out in 2024? Are there authors I know about or don't? I love discovering like lesser known authors or new to me authors, even if they're maybe kind of popular. So that's something I was focusing on as well. Like, what are things that I've never heard of or authors that I've never heard of coming out in 2024 that it might be interesting to me to check out, as well as some other authors that I'd maybe heard of before who are coming out with second books or third books. And yeah, so this is just like a really short list. It's like 6 books that I gathered because I don't want this to be a super long video, and I kind of maybe want to split up like every season or something this year, maybe come out with like another like, oh, spring or summer anticipated reads in like every sort of quarter where more books are coming out. And this might maybe also give me a chance to, I don't know, rein myself in and be like, will I actually read some of these, to kind of focus just on like a few that I think I might get through, because I do see some people coming out with all these anticipated releases, like kind of videos, and I'm like, are you gonna read like all these 30 books? And it's really fine that people don't, obviously, like you can anticipate a release and then like not get to it that year or in 2 or 3 years. Like there's a lot of books that I was like excited for that I didn't end up getting to like the year that I was kind of like really excited for like them to come out. So totally understandable. But because I have so many things I want to read and so many older books already that I want to read, I want it to be manageable for myself. So here are the 6 books that I say are coming out. Most of these I think are already out. Some might be coming out very soon, but here's the 6 books that I'm looking forward to reading in 2024. The first book is Womb City by Tlotlo Tsamase, and this takes place in a futuristic city in Botswana and tells a story about like a possible future of fertility where husbands are able to control their wives' bodies throughout pregnancy via microchip, and artificial wombs are also a thing. But there's more to this story than just a sort of sci-fi element. It turns into a horror when our main character Nella and her lover commit a crime that ends up haunting them. This sounds like a very genre-defying story with a lot of social commentary that I'm very interested in. The future terrifies me with like technology, honestly, and my partner works in tech, so sometimes he'll tell me things, I'm like, this sounds awful, and he's kind of into some of it, and somebody's also like, he's critical too, but there's some things that he definitely thinks can be used for like good, and I'm like, I can see how this will be used for evil, like automatically, and I'm just like so scared, like with AI and deepfakes and everything, and like we talk about it a lot, and we're like, yeah, some things look a little bit bleak. So I'm really curious about that element. I mean, I think it's especially terrifying with like, I don't know, how people can use our bodies, how we will be able to use our bodies. I think this is probably set like quite in the future, so maybe it's not something I'll have to worry about. But yeah, it's a little terrifying to me, but I'm also very interested. So yeah, curious to check this book out. Next book is Come and Get It by Kylie Reed. And this is on here because I read Such a Fun Age recently. A friend recommended it to me and she said the audiobook was really good, so I listened to the audiobook and I enjoyed it. It had been on like a TBR of mine when it first came out, like quite a few years ago actually, and I just never got around to it. But yeah, Such a Fun Age was pretty good, so I'm curious what Kylie Reed has come up with next. But anyway, this is about Millie. She is an RA, and she just wants to graduate very soon, get a job, get a house, all these sort of like typical adulty things that are not necessarily like easy for people to do. Imagine owning a house. So when a visiting professor shows up at her college and offers her a sort of interesting, intriguing job opportunity, she jumps at the chance. And it turns out that it sounds like that they'll sort of be using each other via whatever they're working on, which I don't know what it will be exactly. I think the professor is writing a book or something to do with like weddings and wedding vows, but I don't know all the details. But it sounds like they're kind of like using each other as a means to an end in whatever project they're working on together. But sometime after they start working together, a tragic event at the university seems to possibly upend the work and what they are trying to get out of it for themselves and for the sake of the work itself. So I'm curious what that might be. It seems like if this follows at all like what Such a Fun Age like was, there might be some sort of interesting connection between this professor and either the college or the students. This follows a few different characters. I don't know if it's like from all their perspectives or just their characters that get introduced via Millie, the main character. But yeah, I'm curious what the connection will be because I know there will be one. And yeah, the one in Such a Fun Age was wild and unexpected. I knew there'd be like something at some point that would come up like between all the characters, but I was not expecting what it actually was. So I hope there's something similar that's just gonna completely shock me with this one. And yeah, this one's already out. I hope to get to it at some point. I'm sure the wait time at the library will be quite long, but we'll see. The next book is Poor Dear by Claire Oshetsky. This book is about Margaret, who is a young girl, and her first memory is that of the day that her friend died. Nobody blames her, outwardly at least, but it seems like Margaret had played a certain role in her friend's death, but she is quite a young girl, and so no, I don't think she quite remembers what that might be or is not ready to face it, and no one is really wanting to tell her. Her mom especially is like very defensive over what happened. But she is a child grappling with these heavy emotions and memories and things she can't quite make sense of. So instead she has a very wild imagination, and she makes up these fantasy stories full of make-believe and magic, but they all have a happy ending, and that's kind of how she, I guess, reckons with her situation in life and not really knowing what to do about what happened. So these stories always have a happy ending. That is until a character named Poor Dear comes into her head uninvited and kind of forces her to reckon with what happened to her friend Agnes and how she died. This sounds really interesting to me because of like the many sort of like layers that this could have. Like, is it a bit of a fantasy novel? Is it just someone, I don't know, needing to really face the truth of what happened, and their mind is eventually like coming up with these things in order for them to do that? I think it's such a tragic thing to be dealing with death, and especially the death of a friend when you are such a young person. I mean, at any age it's difficult, but I think when you don't even like fully understand what happened and have these memories, obviously, especially if you played some sort of role or were there when it happened, yeah, I don't know, it sounds like a bit of a difficult read, but one that I'm really interested in. Next book is The Moon That Turns You Back by Hala Alian. This is a poetry collection that I recently heard about, and I don't read a lot of poetry, but I'm interested in reading this one. I do occasionally like dabble in some like poetry books or like small like chapbooks sort of. And some of the poetry that I've read I've really enjoyed. I've tried to write poetry, like I'm kind of like interested in it, but I've never made like a deep dive into reading a lot of it or writing a lot of it. I haven't read any of Hala Alian's work in the past, so I don't know for sure. But she is a Palestinian American author, and her work will be this poetry collection will be taking place between Brooklyn, Beirut, and Jerusalem, and kind of blurring the boundaries of borders and time and space, and I'm really curious as to how that will come about. This poetry collection will also be taking a look at like the mundane sort of aspects of life set against like geopolitical tragedies and conflicts, and I find that to be really interesting too, as we're all like in various ways like having to face these sort of things in our lives, that as we kind of just go through the motions, as we have to kind of go through the motions of like going to work, making coffee, whatever, in the backdrop of like terrible things happening. So this collection feels very like crucial, especially for this time, but really for every time. When have we not had to reckon with sort of tragedies? And I think obviously living here in Canada, it's very easy to ignore a lot of things, or things are not like always at the forefront for you because they're not happening to you. But I think it's really crucial to face that, and I'm very curious like what this poetry collection will make me think about and make me kind of consider. Next is Beautyland by Marie-Helene Bertino. This is a coming-of-age story about Adina, who was born to her Earth mother, but activated as an alien at the age of 4 by her extraterrestrial superiors, who want her to send back any sort of information and facts about Earth that she learns as she's growing up. So she is tasked with sending these sort of dispatches of information back to her home planet, presumably to serve it somehow, but she does not know anything about her home planet or who lives there, who these extraterrestrial superiors are exactly. I'm really curious how like the whole Earth Mother thing works as well, like how she was born into someone on Earth, and I hope that gets explained. Although it doesn't sound like totally that's what this book is about. Like, it sounds like a very light science fiction that just mainly follows the life of someone who is probably very lonely and confused and has this big monumental sort of task ahead of her, while probably also going through like the motions of daily life and growing up. And I'm really curious, like, if her Earth Mother like knows or will know. Does she tell anyone? Probably somebody will find out at some point. Does she meet these extraterrestrial superiors of hers, and anyone else from her home planet? Will she go back? I'm very curious. I think this one's also already out. I think I've seen some people talk about it already, and I'm really hyped about this one, honestly. I love aliens and like UFO theories, alien theories. And lastly, I have Interesting Facts About Space by Emily Austen. I'm the only one of these books that I have bought so far, but I've not read yet. I'm really excited for this one. A little nervous too, because I feel like Emily Austen maybe sort of like lives inside my brain a little bit. She wrote Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead, which is one of my favorite books. I've definitely talked about on this channel before. And that's about a character who thinks a lot about dying, has a rough relationship with her family, and just has a bit of issues like with relationships in general, with doing like basic tasks in general. And I'm like, wow, I relate a little bit too much at some of these, particularly like her fears and thoughts around death. And I think this one will be told in kind of like a similar voice, which I'm excited about because I really love Emily Austen's sort of like narrative style, writing style. And yeah, but this one, obviously different character, no fear of death, fear of bald men instead. This book follows Enid. She is obsessed with space. This is also something I used to be obsessed with. I'm not as much anymore, but when I was in high school, early university, I was obsessed with space. My like Letterboxd username is like some space thing that I don't even remember what it like represents in space, and I've not looked it up. I was thinking about looking it up before this video, but I forgot, and so now I don't know. Super obsessed with like the pillars of creation, I think they're called. Beautiful like picture of them that I saw and was like loved. Yeah, anyway, used to be super into space. This character she is not afraid of space, of black holes and all these terrifying things that we can find in space. She is, however, afraid of bald men. That is her one like major phobia. Probably also a little bit afraid of intimate relationships, because this book follows her kind of going through a lot of like dating app dates and stuff with a lot of women that she doesn't really seemingly end up being super serious about, until finally there is someone that she enters like a more serious relationship with. And it's at that point that she begins to fear that she is being stalked as well. She becomes very paranoid, and that paranoia sort of spirals out of control. I am also a very paranoid person. I'm like, Emily Austen, like, are you in my mind? And yeah, I'm sure she has to like also sort of face her own sort of fears, and her fears of like being intimate and being real with herself. I'm sure that's what we'll sort of find in this book. That's sort of what was the case in Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead. And I don't know, I love that, because I'm like, I also need to do these things sometimes, and maybe this book will serve as a bit of an inspiration. But mostly I do just love Emily Austen's sort of like way of writing. I think she's a very talented writer, and these books are they're really funny. Like, they talk about these kind of like tragic or difficult things, but they're so funny. I remember like, I don't know, laughing, like going back to all these pages in her first book and just laughing so much. But they're also sad in a way that I like. I remember crying, or at least tearing up at like page 4 of Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead, and then definitely crying more later. I don't know, just the way that she writes, very good. If you haven't checked her out yet, I mean, I can't 100% vouch for this book yet, but I'm sure it'll be great. But Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead, wonderful book, loved it. So excited to read this one. So yeah, these are 6 books that have come out in 2024 or will be coming out in 2024 that I'm really excited to read. I was initially planning on making this video a bit earlier in the year, before most of these books have come out actually, but things get delayed in life. So here it is now. And I hope to actually get to some of these books and maybe talk about them in future videos because yeah, I don't know. There's so many things I want to read. I'm rereading something right now. There's a lot of other things on my list. I have like a few holds. Listening to an audiobook right now that I'm going to be discussing with like a book club. I have another book with another kind of like book club that I need to finish, and I don't know if I will before the deadline. Before our meeting. So we'll see. There's a lot going on. I was just reading a very long book and I just finally finished that and it took a lot out of me. It was really good though. It was The Name of the Wind. I talked about it before. Anyway, I'm just rambling now and I will stop because this video is getting long. But thank you so much for watching and for checking me and this video out. If you liked this video, please give it a like. Please consider subscribing or sharing this video with a friend who also enjoys reading. It would mean so much to me. And I will catch you in the next one. I hope you have a great, wonderful day.